Say hello to the black face of white supremacy. Before I get started, I want to say a few things about my home state of California. As you know, I ran for governor. I just heard that Governor Gavin Newsom has agreed to debate Ron DeSantis. Wouldn't it have been nice if somebody had pressured him to debate me during the recall election when it mattered? Now, I got a book coming out the first week of September. It's called As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. My goals are modest. And in the book, I propose a two-step plan to save California. Step number one, keep the illegal aliens. Step number two, deport the Democrats. I had an epiphany when I was campaigning. I've always been opposed to term limits. But now I'm in favor of term limits for voters. Once you vote Democrat 2 or 3 times in a row, you lose your right to vote. What do you think? Not too surprisingly, I haven't gotten a lot of traction with that one. I'm running because there are some issues that our side does not talk enough about. This lie the Democrats have been pushing and pushing and pushing that America remains systemically racist. It's not just pushing nonsense like reparations, which is the extraction of money from people who were never slave owners to be given to people who were never slaves. It's not only pushing stuff like race-based preferences, which is causing a mismatch of college students, so the ones that are supposedly benefiting end up dropping out at a higher rate, and also shafting another minority group known as Asian Americans. It's also pushing stuff like diversity, equity, inclusion, which is the opposite of what MLK wanted. He wanted a colorblind society, not a color-coordinated society. But worse is getting people killed. It's called the Ferguson effect or the George Floyd effect, and that is a phenomenon of cops all over America pulling back from doing their normal proactive policing. So in the last several years, in cities all around the country, there were thousands of people who've been victimized by violent crime and who are dead, who otherwise would not have suffered if the police had been doing their normal proactive policing. And these, call them excess casualties, are primarily black and brown people that people on the left purport to care about. It is getting people killed. Then there is this 10,000-pound elephant in the room that our side does not talk enough about, if at all, and that is the number one social problem facing this country, far and away, is the epidemic of fatherlessness. Far and away. 40% of American kids enter the world today without a father in the home married to the mother, up threefold from 1965. In 1965, 25% of black kids entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now that number is a little bit under 70%. Now 25% of white kids enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once quoted them. A kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What happened in the mid-'60s when Democrat Lyndon Johnson launched the so-called war on poverty? We've incentivized women to marry the government, and we've incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. They don't talk about it because they caused it. Our side doesn't talk about it because if you are white, you're called systemically racist, and if you're black, you're called the black face of white supremacy. And this is not to denigrate the hard job that single moms and sometimes grandparents have done, but it is certainly much, much harder to do. These kids need mentors. They need a male figure in their lives. I was just in Johnston, Iowa. I was talking to the police chief. And I said, "You guys have a gang problem?" He said, "Yeah, we do. Not like Chicago, but we have a problem." I said, "What's the commonality?" He said, "These kids do not have a male father figure in their life. It can be a father, it can be a grandfather, it can be a coach, it can be a pastor. It's got to be somebody. These kids have nothing." My generation, the baby boom generation, is retiring or will soon retire. Many of us are vigorous. They've raised children, they've raised grandchildren, they have time on their hands. They need to get involved, they need to be mentors. They need to get involved either with money or with their time. They need to be mentors. Every one of these kids, I liken it to Alcoholics Anonymous, where if you're a recovering alcoholic, you have a sponsor, somebody you can call on when you feel a moment of need of counseling, of weakness. All these kids need to have some male figure in their life that they can call on. And as a president, I'll be using the bully pulpit to recommend that we do this. And the money that's being spent, thank you. And the money that is being spent on social programs at the federal level is being misspent. The programs are inefficient. That money, taxpayers should be able to direct it to organizations in their own communities, most notably churches, nonprofits that are doing this kind of mentoring, where they'll get far, far more successful results. Then there is this disaster known as K through 12 urban education. You guys have choice here in Iowa. There are 13 public high schools in Baltimore, just to choose one city. 13 public high schools in Baltimore, all located in the inner city, where 0% of the kids can do math at grade level, I kid you not. Another half a dozen where only 1% can. That's half of all the public high schools in the city of Baltimore where either 0% or only 1% of the kids can do math at grade level. Chicago, 53 government schools, that's a term I prefer, government school. 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party opposes school choice, which studies have shown improved test scores, improved graduation rates. Meanwhile, their elites, whether Barack Obama, Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden, they have their own kids in private school. It is an absolute outrage. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around. My father was born in Athens, Georgia. My mom was born in Huntsville, Alabama. We're talking about Jim Crow South. My father never met his biological father. My last name, Elder, was the name of some man who was in his life the longest. My dad came home at the age of 13. Elder was long gone. He began quarreling with his mom's then boyfriend. She sides with the boyfriend and throws my father out of the house, never to return. 13-year-old black boy, 8th grade dropout at the beginning of the Great Depression. My dad picked up trash. Ultimately, he got a job as a Pullman porter. Came out to this place called California, and he was stunned. You could walk into the front door of a restaurant and get served. My dad always had packages of crackers and tin cans of tuna because you never knew in the South if you'd be able to get a meal. So he made a mental note, maybe someday I'll relocate to California. Pearl Harbor, my dad joined the Marines. He was a Montford Point Marine. They were the first black Marines. My dad was a staff sergeant in charge of cooking for the colored soldiers. War is over, goes back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he met and married my mom to get him a job as a cook, and he was told, we don't hire Told my mom, this is nonsense. I'm going to L.A. where I was before the war, get me a job as a cook. He walks around, and he's told, you don't have any references. My dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs? They treated him the same way in L.A. as they did in Chattanooga. My dad went to the unemployment office, took the first thing that he had. My dad worked at Nabisco brand bread for over 10 years cleaning toilets, took a second full-time job at another bread company cleaning toilets, cooked for a family on the weekend because he wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, went to night school to get his GED. When he finished that, went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. At the age of 47, my dad had saved his nickels and dimes, starts a small restaurant near downtown LA, runs it until his mid-80s. When my dad retired, he owned the restaurant, the property next door, plus the home that's still in our family. Not too shabby for an 8th grade dropout, Athens, Georgia, who can tell you a little something about systemic racism. It is a lie that the Democrats do to drive that 90% black vote. They don't want black people thinking about schools or crime or jobs. They want black people to be thinking about social justice or equity, whatever that means. I mentioned my dad was a World War II Marine vet. My older brother Kirk, my late older brother Kirk, was in the Navy, served in the 6th Fleet during the Vietnam-era war. My little brother Dennis actually went to Vietnam. I'm the only one in my family who didn't serve. My mom even worked for the War Department as a clerk typist. I've never felt good about that. This is my opportunity to give back to my country and give back to a country that's been so good to me and to my family, and that is why I'm doing this. I'm urging you all, please, I need 40,000 individual donors to qualify for that first debate on the 23rd of this month. You can donate as little as $1. Just go to my website, larryelder.com. That's larryelder.com. And when I get up there in that debate stage and I talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America is systemically racist, the need for school choice, the need for an amendment to the Constitution to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP, otherwise government's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We just had our credit rating downgraded. We are borrowing $5 billion a day to run this country. And we need to do something about all these issues. So once I get up there and I talk about these issues, hold my beer, game on. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Hoorah!